the speaker is the addressee. And that creates a fundamentally different world with people in it. And that is a community that is constantly inventing itself. The way, look, this is the way it gets translated from the French to English. That's the community that keeps on coming. Okay. It never arrives. It's always on the way. Constantly reinventing. And there is a kind of, I don't know if it's obligation, that could, because that gets very close to the Moses paradigm, okay? But there is a desire to retell. One is caught up in desire. One cannot not tell the story. Be loquacious. Okay. There's more, on page 36 and 37. I'm not going to go through that. But basically, this is in the section on what he refers to as the three pragmatics. The Parmenides game, and that is the author, the aggressor. And then the Moses game, the addressee, and one is obligated to respond. Noah is told to do what? Build an ark. Why would I want to do that? Don't ask questions, do it. So one acts, and then one understands. That's, the way it's described by Lyotard. One acts and one understands. And then there's the pagan game, which is primarily what we've been, talking about. All of this is further developed on page 54. I'm not going there, but just letting you know. Okay. Questions, comments at this point? Because I want to go on to the gods now. I want to go on to what he has to say about, in his words, okay, not mine. Well, occasionally mine, which I think is exceptionally important. I mean, he states it so beautifully here, okay, and with a sense of this must be the way that it is. But in saying that, it undoes itself, okay? Because what it does is a constant undoing, a doing and an undoing and so on. So I'm jumping in down at the bottom of page 41. The Talmud says, quote, "Do before you understand." And the Jews did, and then they understood. He sets the problem exactly right. It is clear that it is not a question of first understanding. No. First, one acts from the obligation. It comes from the simple fact that I am being spoken to, that you are speaking to me, and then, and only then, can one try to understand what has been received. In other words, the obligation operated comes first, and then one sees what one is obligated to. The other mix of that was, remember we talked about this last time, one acts, one suffers, one learns. The dialectic of tragedy that Ginsberg talks about. He doesn't invent this, okay, it's ancient. In paganism, the gods do not speak. Is everything okay?
Yeah.
I'm just checking reality, okay? Sometimes, if I talk too long, it seems like it's a film, and that's the screen here. And I just want to reach out and touch it.
The fourth wall.
Yes. That's good. In paganism, the gods do not speak. The gods do not speak to me, even when I consult them. As they say, they signify. They do not speak. It cannot be said that the gods speak to me, certainly not in the Jewish sense. Tibble says, in the case of the oracle, we read some of this well. I'm going to read through this again. Oh, no, I know. No, I can see. It's the next page 43. Excuse me. About 4 lines down from the top. On the contrary, it is a place of ceaseless negotiations and ruses. This is the pagus, the boundaries, over on page 42. The antecedent, the place is boundaries. The pagus, it's the opposite of the heim, the home. This is really big in the differend. Okay. Which means that there is no reference by which to judge the opponent's strength. One does not know if she is a god or a human. It is a beggar, but it may be a god, since the other is metamorphic, and one will have to judge, therefore, by opinion alone, that is, without criteria. That's the game. That's the pagan game. And here I get back to Aristotle. We are always within opinion, and there is no possible discourse of truth on the situation. And there is no such discourse because one is caught up in a story. And one cannot get out of this story to take up a meta-linguistic position from which the whole could be dominated. We are always immanent to stories in the making, even when we are the ones telling the story to the other. To have a meta-linguistic position from which to judge would be to be the God, not a God. Okay. In the same way that the gods are immanent to the stories of which they are elements, the objects. Absolutely. There are sets of narratives from which they can never get out, right? And the proof lies in the fact that they fight with humans. They get injured. If they were true gods, they should know that they will get injured by humans, or they should not get injured at all. Lyotard. But they are not gods. Shit, I can't talk. I'm losing my voice. But they are not gods in that sense at all. They are not all-knowing. They just have their stories that humans do not know. And humans have their own stories. And these two sets of stories are, if you will, not two blocks, but two centers that send out their elements to negotiate, if one can call it that, on the boundaries. Now we're back to the pagus. Okay. This is paganism. One does not know who one is speaking to. One does not know whom one is speaking to. One does not know whom one is speaking to. One must be very prudent. One must negotiate. One must ruse. And one must be on the lookout when one has won. This echoes to, this is echoed in Samuel Weber's discussion of Nietzsche's homeless contest. Mm-hmm. And what's the gist of that very sharp discussion, homeless contest? What was the law that the Greeks had, according to the philologist of the future, Nietzsche? What was their thinking about someone who wins?
I don't know. You couldn't win too many times, or else they would shun you in the games and the competition. You always wanted to keep people within kind of a very narrow economy of pursuit. So it was more about keeping the game open and producing a winner.
The person who wins cannot win all the time. He has to lose.
Yeah.
And if he keeps winning all the time, then you take him and you throw him out. He's shunned. Okay.
That's funny, because that's the kind of person who would be elevated in our culture. He's a winner.
Only until he starts losing.
Then he's a loser.
No, then he retires rich.
Very, very, very filthy rich. Or, it's very easy to get a story going about somebody, right? So that's how you get them as well. But whatever, by any means other than acceptable, you get rid of this person. Okay, and listen, when you were a kid, did you ever play King of the Hill? And how did it go? The same one played. Did you ever show up again? I mean, won all the time. Did you ever show up again?
We were allowed to throw dirt clods and rocks. So, there was no real permanent King of the Hill.
Oh, okay, I got you.
You got kind of hurt and beat up and,
Unless you wanted to be a sycophant, right? You wanted to
allow yourself
live in the shadow of this person who would protect you and so on.
Hey, V, can we spend some time on the
Sure.
third day?
On the third day, yeah.
Third day. And what I specifically have in mind here is, well, he starts out with discussion, wondering, Thabit or Thibault. I'm going to keep this
Tibble.
Just going to write in Tibble, Tibble. So he starts out with discussion, Tibble asks, so, okay, we can't derive prescriptions, I'll grant you that one. So why should we be just? And where's this question of, I think what he's asking in a certain sense, are we obligated? What obligates us to even think that we should approach the problem of concepts and justice and truth in the manner that you are not prescribing, but at the same time you're saying it's like this lurking imperative kind of thing. We should do this. And he does start talking about imperatives on page 46.
Yeah.
When he starts going on about the idea, and he does actually use the word reason, and I'm really interested in why he is willing to talk about reasonable beings. So, again, that's just something I hope we could kind of spend a little bit of time on. Like over in 47, he even mentions like a republic of reasonable beings.
Okay, reasonable, right? There's the notion of, this is a fixed phrase, good reasons, which are a repertoire of good reasons put forth by others that seem to be appropriate from time to time, given whatever the situation is that you're in. There's no algorithm or even heuristic, maybe, to determine that. But one judges without criteria from wisdom. I mean, where in the world does Solomon's wisdom come from when he's confronted with the two women and the baby? You know what I'm referring to?
I don't know, divinity or whatever, I have no idea.
Where he says, well, just come to, I'll give you one half, you give me one half. I mean, what had he anticipated in terms of results?
The mother of the child would back away because she wouldn't want to see the child killed.
That's what he probably anticipated. How did he arrive at that, though?
He's smart.
I mean, witnessing this over and over again, that the mother would give her life to save the baby.
God.
I'm sorry?
Is it from God? I don't.
Well, if it is, then the wisdom is
He's just a vessel.
descriptive. Could be that. I don't know that. But where does that wisdom come from? Where does this come from? I can't think of the name of the group. The Good Samaritan. The Samaritans were bad dudes, right?
But they were shunned. They were
Yeah,
insulted.
but I mean,
Thugs.
from the point of view of the story that's told in the Old Testament, they were bad. And it took, in terms of, because we're talking about prescription here and description, right? And he gives it as an example. And so does, maybe it's, Michelle Sarah gives it as an example. And it takes one person to do something good. And everything is erased. Okay. Given the principle of prescription. Everything that had been inscribed. And it turned into a description is gone.